VeChain update.
Let's get into it.
So today, guys, we're going to be taking a cheeky look at VeChain and specifically the price action of the VET coin. We're going to be taking a look at the technical analysis here to see exactly what's been going on recently, as well as that big macro picture as well as where we think VeChain is likely to go, give our thoughts and our price prediction for VeChain during 2021 and this bull run that we're in. So guys, as always, if you do find this useful and informative, do go ahead and hit that like button. We both really do appreciate that. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel and you'd like to stay up to date with the new cryptocurrencies, the hidden gems, the technical analysis and news, then do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you'll be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. It is free. You'll stay well informed. So why not? Right, with that said, Chris, is there anything else that you want to add before we jump on down to the charts and start taking a look at what's going on here with VeChain?
Yeah, would really like it if you like VeChain to mash up that like button, show us how much you like VeChain, and comment below. Just let us know, what do you think the price is going to be at the peak of the bull run 2021?
Fantastic. Yeah, do let us know in the comments what your price predictions for 2021. Really interesting if they are bullish and more bullish than I am, or maybe even a little bit more conservative. Let us know down below. Fantastic. Right, let's jump on down and get right on into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, guys, here we have VeChain to the USDT. This is the daily chart, and we're using Binance as the data source. Now, this is the daily chart, and it is zoomed right out, so we get a good big macro picture as to what is exactly going on here with VeChain. For lots of FUD out there, we kind of tried to debunk some of this around BMW, but the other kind of piece that's always kind of floating around is VeChain does nothing. The price of VeChain doesn't go anywhere. And hopefully this is a graphical representation of the fact that VeChain has done some phenomenal gains since March of 2020. Believe me, it has been doing something. So here we can see, obviously, the price action and the price movement of VET. We can see that I have an Elliott theory here, 5 waves moving to the upside. We have wave 1 starting in March of 2020, with completing that first wave in August. And I think a lot of people who were early adopters of VeChain would have remembered the fantastic highs of August 2020. It was a euphoric moment, Chris, as we remember, oh, wow, VeChain, it's doing so well. Little did we know where things were likely to go during 2021. But nonetheless, wave 2 does kick in, and we see a correction towards the end of the year, and wave 2 does complete by November. And this is when wave 3 really started for VeChain. And this thing actually did some phenomenal gains. And we saw this thing peaking up here at the 15th, approximately the 15th of April of 2021. So a significant amount of time had passed since the low end of November. And we obviously see some fantastic highs. And obviously, everything cannot go up forever. So we are now in a correction wave 4. And wave 4 is a downward trend. And obviously, this thing we believe has bottomed out. And obviously, that happened during the major correction for Bitcoin. And a lot of people were calling this the bear market were coming in. And yet, if you zoom out, you can kind of see actually there's a little bit more to come. Yet we are still expecting wave 5. Wave 5, in my opinion, takes this thing up to about $1 or so. And I'm going to get into some of the things that are happening on the micro scale, as well as what we can see in the bigger picture as well. So right now, there's a couple of things that I do want to talk about in terms of the Elliott wave theory and why this is still valid and has not been invalidated yet. And some of these technical points that you can see here. So because wave 2 was relatively flattish in its approach and the correction to the downside actually took some time from up here at the top of August down to November, it was relatively flat and it was dragged out. It was a prolonged correction to the downside. Now, when wave 2 is flattish like this, wave 4 will be a sharp correction. Okay, it'll be quick and it'll be steep. And if wave 2 was sharp and steep, then wave 4 would have been flat. Okay, so those two things are usually counter each other out. The other thing to bear in mind is wave 2 is usually about 50 to 60% of wave 1. And wave 4 is usually about 40% of wave 3. Okay, so these things are actually quite in line with the standard kind of practices when it comes to Elliott wave theory. The other thing that we have to bear in mind is wave 4 cannot cross wave 1. So we know there's a theoretical limit as to how low wave 4 could potentially go. And that actually comes in for VeChain at 3.4 cent, I think. Actually, 2.3 cents, sorry. So we know that's a bottom area, I don't think that's actually going to happen. There's quite a few support lines that would have to crumble for that to happen, and I don't think that is likely to happen at all. So I actually do feel that we found the bottom of wave 4, and we're going to be slowly moving in to wave 5. And as I get into the deeper levels, or the more micro views here, you can start to see some bullish patterns are forming, and we're starting to see some upward trends really taking stride. Now, wave 5, as I said, kind of does mean that we'll be looking up to that kind of dollar level, but there has true possibilities here and true potential to move a little bit beyond that, as there's very few blockchains in this space that do as much as what Vechain does. Vechain has some phenomenal use cases and is so widely adopted in the real world. It's definitely something that you want to be paying attention to, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and get into that hourly view and drill right on in and see exactly what's been going on here. Let's just expand this up a tad. And so we can get a bit of a picture as to how things have been playing out. Now, obviously, we have this downward trend. We can see this forming from the upper end here to the downside over here, right? And we can see that actually this was invalidated around the 31st of May. And we had that breakout event that broke through this downward trend, meaning that our upward trend line here was actually the stronger line. And this upward trend was much stronger than the downward trend, indicating to us that the correction had actually started to come to a bit of a close. So therefore, I do feel that we found the bottom of wave 4, and we can see this upward trend really working well. And even considering Bitcoin's correction yesterday and Bitcoin's correction today, we are already starting to see that this support line is being heavily tested, and it is still holding up very, very well. And as I get into those lower areas, the most recent few hours here, we can see that there are a couple of wicks that have gone a little bit below our trend line. Now, these can happen occasionally, and you can take the odd one here and there as an anomaly. But if it continues to happen, we'll have to redraw our trend line to the upside. It doesn't mean that there is no upward trend. It just means that I haven't quite got my lines drawn exactly where they need to be, and we just have to adjust those accordingly. We'll also be cautious of any potential downward trends also forming. So if, for example, these set of lower highs are obviously lower than the high over here, even though we're starting to set these higher lows. So again, you end up with these kind of triangular wedges forming all over the place. So I imagine, again, if everything lines up perfectly for Vechain here, we'll continue this motion to the upside. We also are in a bit of a triangular wedge, and I'm not sure how visible this is, but up here there is an orange line, and I'm just going to move it a little bit above so you get it. So it's actually in line with our 50% retracement zone of our Fibonacci retracement tool. And that particular indicator is basically showing us a major area of resistance just there at about 15.1, I think it is, or yes, about 15.1 cent. This is a major area of resistance for us. And actually what we're seeing here is this upward trend that is going to coincide with our 15.1 resistance line. And it's at that point that you're either going to have a break up or a break down. And for Vechain here, I do feel that we're going to see a break up. And there's a couple of things to support this. One is obviously what we saw yesterday was a fantastic bounce from our 37.41 area on our relative strength index. This is an area that Vechain was historically always bouncing from, and it has some fantastic bounces from here to the upside. So again, we got that bounce yesterday, and this actually happened right about this point here. Right about here. And historically, when we've been down to this 37.41 on that relative strength index, Vechain bounces right to the upside. And if there's good volume, it has some phenomenal moves to the upside as well. So this is showing us that it's actually a return to the previous trend. Whereas recently, we've been going below this area here quite a bit, and we're not finding good support during this volatility. So right now, returning back to normality for Vechain, bouncing off of this 37.41 is a really encouraging sign. So we do have that to support our upward trend here and this triangular wedge, which makes me feel that we're actually more than likely going to have a bit of a breakout to the upside here when it comes to Vechain. Obviously, we'll know much closer to the time once we start to intersect this area here, which will be around the 8th of June. And of course, it can happen much beforehand. It doesn't necessarily have to wait until then. So we'll have to see how we play out in the coming kind of days and see how that plays out for sure. But for now, I'm expecting us to kind of get a little bit of recovery here. And if we move too high to this upside here, we'll have probably another correction to our upward trend line before that breakout event truly does happen and we break out of here. So for Vechain, it's looking pretty encouraging in terms of what we see from a macro point of view. And also when we dive into the hourly view here from that micro view, if you're really into your trading and you really want to know where your entry points are, then pay attention to these triangular wedges that are forming. Also pay attention to that 50, 100, 200 moving averages. Pay attention to those crosses that you're seeing over here as well. And obviously, being tethered to Bitcoin, as many of these altcoins currently are, then you have to be also very aware of how Bitcoin is performing as well. Where are Bitcoin's resistance lines? Where are Bitcoin's support lines? And ultimately what is happening there from maybe a Wyckoff accumulation or a Wyckoff distribution or any other form of manipulation from some whales in the space. And of course, pay attention to Twitter because sometimes a tweet can trigger a bit of a downward trend as well. So in terms of everything that we're seeing here, we are seeing some pretty good, strong support lines for VeChain, considering everything that was happening with Bitcoin yesterday as well. Bitcoin obviously having its downward trend coinciding with various different tweets and various other things happening in the background also seem to have coincided here with VeChain finding resistance as well. So again, we took advantage of that situation. We went from an overbought area straight away down to our 37.41 very rapidly here yesterday. That puts us in a really strong position to continue to motion to the upside. And again, today's correction with Bitcoin also puts us right back into a good area on that register strength index. Volumes are okay. So everything is really lining up quite well for VeChain to continue this motion to the upside in the near future. And again, we want to stay inside this triangular wedge. So again, we'll be paying close attention to what happens here with our upward trend line. There still is an upward trend. It would have to come somewhere down here to really invalidate that. So we'll be watching that closely to see how that plays out. And as long as we stay inside this area here, we'll have a pretty good chance at moving to the upside, in my opinion. Chris, I've kind of covered off everything I can from the technical update for VeChain, but is there anything else that you feel you want to add?
Well, nothing more than what I normally add, to be honest. It's a fantastic project, solid, and you're going to get more news over the coming weeks. I feel there's lots going on for VeChain, and it's one of those that's got real good real world use case, and that's going to be a thing to start really being sort of, I guess, thoughtful of when making an investment.
Absolutely. I mean, there's very few blockchains that you can be so confident on, knowing just how heavily adopted it is by huge companies. I mean, we talk a lot about DNVGL, Walmart, China. We don't talk too much around BMW, but obviously a huge, massive automotive player. There's many of those in the VeChain ecosystem. Renault's another one, and there's also another China one as well, which I forget the name of. And obviously, people say that it's China based. That simply isn't true. I mean, there's lots going on in China, obviously, with the government over there and the contracts that they have. But obviously, you also have people like H&M as well. We have Known Seafood over in the US. It's used over in Cyprus. It's used over in Greece. It's used over in the UK and across Europe. It truly is global. And with this sheer number of partnerships that it has, PwC, DNVGL, BMW, Walmart, H&M, Known Seafood, the list kind of goes on and on and on and on. Bayer. It's hard to really lose faith that that blockchain isn't going to be around for 5-10 years from now. So it's one of those that I just feel quite comfortable with. And the price action, on these kind of smaller timescales, they don't tend to bother me too much when it comes to VeChain, because the bigger picture still sits there. In 5 years from now, what do you think the price of VeChain is going to be? What do you think the price of VeChain is going to be in 10 years from now? I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be significantly higher than it is today. At least in my opinion, and from my own personal investment choices with VeChain, is a long-term play. There will be profits taken on the road, of course, but ultimately there's some fantastic things in the future, and I do see this particular technology, blockchain tech, being absolutely fundamental to the future, and VeChain is going to be fundamental to that as well. So guys, hopefully you found this video useful, informative. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. We both really do appreciate it. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything we do here. Everything from those new cryptocurrencies, hidden gems, technical analysis, and news. It is free. You'll stay well informed, so why not? With that said, done and out of the way, we hope you have a fantastic day, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, take care.